Let you know when we're on
Okay.
the page because I'm refreshing. We are live.
Good afternoon, Tucson Unified employees. I apologize for the delay. We've been having some technical issues with Zoom, but I'm happy to be spending this time with you. This is for you. This forum, I'm going to do as little talking as possible so that we can get to as many of your questions as we can. By now, I hope that many of you have taken the time to check out our reopening of schools booklet. It's available for all of you for public review for anybody that wants to check it out. It's on Next Steps 2020. It is also on our website and social media platforms as well. We'll also be talking about this tomorrow night with our governing board. This plan is not perfect. This whole situation is not perfect. Nobody asked to be in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. Nobody asked to have the schools shut down, and nobody chose to be in this particular situation. I just know that the natural place for frustration is on me and our leadership team, and I don't take that personal. There's some passionate opinions or some passionate concerns, and that's okay. That's why we're here. That's exactly why we're here. I think all of us get up every single day trying to do the best that we can under some unprecedented circumstances that none of us have ever dealt with before. I think this plan is just representative of not perfection. It's representative of the best possible way forward with so many different conflicting interests and preferences between our parents, our students, and our employees. And also, it's not permanent. This is a plan that is designed to get us through the worst part of this community-wide transmission that we're seeing for COVID-19. And then once we start getting on a downward slope, whenever that is, our goal is to start transitioning our students right back to live instruction, which is where they're meant to be. So this is not something that we want to carry forward forever. This is definitely something that is temporary. So with that, we believe that this also represents an opportunity to start school as soon as we can, August 10th, standardize one model for the entire district. That way our teachers aren't running several different models at the same time. Our parents don't have to get used to two different sets of teaching styles, whether they're at home or on campus. This is one instructional model for absolutely everybody. And we understand that it's not necessarily perfect or that people are happy with it. We certainly have been taking our shots online. We've got some definitely strong opinions about what concerns are. But I think that a lot of those strong opinions and critiques are coming from people that are struggling to understand that the school that they're demanding no longer exists in the COVID-19 age. This school that they're demanding that has the group activities, the projects, students working in teams, full running choir programs, band programs, sports back, large practices. People are struggling to understand that that's not what the COVID-19 classroom looks like. The COVID-19 classroom does not look like project-based learning or kids working in teams. It looks like students with masks on, facing forward, sitting 6 to 8 feet apart from each other, not being able to have any interaction, not being able to work in teams, facing forward, and the teacher directing all the action, lecturing at kids for 50 minutes to an hour. That's not the kind of instruction that parents are expecting. So they're upset, and we get that. And that's not the type of instruction that we can offer at this time if we're trying to reduce the effects of COVID-19 in our schools. So with that, I'm going to throw it open to questions for the rest of the way here. That's the reason for this forum. And I will turn it over to our team that will be assisting with us. And what we want to do is we want to take a combination of questions that were submitted, but then also questions that are just coming at us live. I've asked my team to feed me questions unfiltered. We didn't pick audience members, didn't pick staff members. This is truly an open forum to any of our almost 8,000 employees that are watching on Facebook, that just want to type in a question. We're going to be doing a combo of those questions that come in live and those that have already been submitted. And I want the toughest ones. I don't want the easy question. I want the toughest ones, toughest questions, toughest concerns. That's the only way that I believe that this forum is going to be most effective. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Leslie, Carla, Vivian.
Okay. So Dr. Trujillo, the first question is a three-part question. It says, it is from Nick Thomas, and it says, what is the actual timeline for reopening for teachers? When do they go back in person? And who goes back in person?
Okay, right now, TUSD and all Arizona school districts, we are under an executive order from Governor Ducey. We cannot open physically until August 17th or after. That is not a 100% guarantee that we will open on August 17th. We have a commitment from the Pima County Health Department after last week's executive order, where the Pima County Health Department will be adopting its own Pima County metrics around the extent to which community spread of COVID-19 still represents a threat to public health. These metrics will be publicized later this week by Pima County Health Department. Pima County Health Department will be making a recommendation prior to August 7th as our county public health agency as to whether it is safe for a physical reopening on August 17th. The Tucson Unified School District, I have every intention of honoring their recommendation, whatever it is, and bringing that recommendation forward to the governing board. If the recommendation is to remain closed, we will honor that. The governor's executive order allows for us to be in compliance with his executive order if our county public health agency or public health department examines local conditions and determines that it's not safe for opening. We would still be compliant with the governor's order and all of the financial relief provisions of that order, which is why it is incumbent upon Pima County Health Department to act on our behalf. They're the face of it at this point, and they will be making recommendations, not just for TUSD, but for all of Pima County and all of our Pima County districts. So if their recommendation is to remain closed, nobody's coming back, okay? If they're making a recommendation that it is safe to open, then that means that it's going to be open and safe for us to facilitate live instruction. That's my hope. So we want to make sure that it is an environment that our employees see specific health metrics. And if Pima County Health Department publicizes specific health metrics that are watched and assessed every 14 days, there can be no argument. You can't argue with data. If we're on a downward trend, we're on a downward trend, and people can't argue about it being not safe or safe to come back. But it's the absence of the data, which is what we have right now, and the governor just giving a date. That is what has everybody nervous. That is what has everybody very, very anxious. It's a high level of anxiety because we don't have any data right now that we are going to be making decisions. So I'm very happy to report that Pima County Health Department will be stepping into that role. Thank you. Great question.
Dr. Trujillo, we're going to go ahead with one of our first questions on Facebook, and this is from Diana Okagi. Diana, I hope I'm not butchering your last name. She wants to know, Dr. Trujillo, what are the options for support staff? Do they have the same as teachers? Can they take leave or work from home? And how would you be protecting support staff?
That's a great question. We have been very clear from the beginning of this closure, and you can go back and look at our governing board meetings from March and in April, in line with guidance we've received from our attorney, our in-house attorney, and our Arizona Schools Risk and Retention Trust. We've received guidance from the governor's own executive orders. We've received guidance from our mayor's countywide ordinance on masks and working from home. Those employees whose job descriptions allow for their jobs to be physically performed from home should be encouraged to do so. Not because the organization is favoring one group of employees over another, But the mission of an organization at this time is to lessen, to the extent possible, the adult bodies on each campus. So when you have 2,800 employees called teachers, and their jobs can be performed remotely from home, we have been clear from the get-go that that is our job, is to support the mitigation and the reduction of possible community spread in and out of our schools. It is not a question of classified versus certified. I will not force 2,800 bodies back into schools just to call something fair, because we would not be looking at it through a public health lens. We're supposed to look at this through a public health lens. There are 2,800 employees whose jobs can be performed from home, who will work diligently from home. There are also classified employees that their very nature of their work is to be physically here. Those are employees who fulfill duties and jobs that are crucial to the daily operation of the district. They literally keep the lights on. A custodian cannot clean Choya High School working from home. A food service employee cannot serve kids on our grab and go meal program working from home. That's not, that the very nature of their job description doesn't allow for that. A monitor cannot secure hallways and playgrounds and facilities working from home. We also have the challenge of some classified employee positions needing the work, and their physical jobs require them to be on campus. And as we saw in the spring, had we had not given them alternative work duties, they could have been furloughed. They could have been laid off. We kept every single person working. We kept our employees working. And that's our job. And that's our job, is to support our employees. But to look at this through a public health lens is our obligation. Bringing back almost 3,000 additional bodies, forcing them back into our buildings, tripling the amount of adult traffic on our campuses is not in the spirit of mitigating community spread. With that being said, what are we doing to protect our classified employees? We have adopted a model that is drastically reduced class sizes. We have gone 70% less on class sizes in some areas. There will be some learning lab spaces that will have 11, 12, 13, drastically different than having 30. In some of our biggest high schools, the max it can get is 14 or 15. So number one, providing smaller learning environments, keeping smaller groups of kids together longer, not having them interact with 5 or 6 different sets of other kids each day, going to 6 different classes, keeping them smaller with one group is going to minimize the risk of transmission. It's going to make it easier in the case that there is transmission for Pima County Health Department's contact tracing team to come in. They'll only have a limited amount of students to identify. They won't have to identify one kid having contact with 65 different kids. They'll only be able to have to contact trace 14 other students that might have been in that room. By adopting a paperless environment, we are mitigating the possibility of transmission through touch. We've taken books, papers, crayon boxes, glue boxes, everything out. It's a kid at a computer with headphones. That's it. Kid at a computer with headphones. By obligating masks, implementing social distancing, we have taken maximum precautions to make sure that any adult that is in that room, and by the way, the administration will be helping too. I will be personally proctoring. I will be out there in the field. Our team will be out there in the field. We will be setting an example. I'll have a mask on. I will be in some of these rooms as well. So I'm not going to ask our employees, classified or otherwise, to do a duty that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And I believe that we are going to do everything we can with these sanitation protocols and these adjustments that we've made to make sure that any adult that steps into this environment is going to be in as secure of a location as possible outside of working from home. But you cannot take an employee whose very nature of the job description is to work physically at school, send them home, and keep paying them without assigning them work duties. We would be in violation of Arizona's gift clause, gifting of public funds. But what we can do is take a classified employee, for example, a bus driver, who through no fault of their own, half of the district is learning online. So now we're running 50% fewer routes. Now we need drivers. They have to have some work. There is no issue with those drivers assuming other duties like helping us in schools, so we can continue to keep them employed and paid. Excellent question, not an easy one, not a popular answer, but this is where we are on this issue. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Trujillo, the next question was sent in anonymously, and it says, is there anything in the budget to have monitors or other part-time employees become full-time because of the demands that the schools need?
Can you repeat the question, please? I even had some questions coming into my own phone.
Sure. So it says, is there anything in the budget to have monitors or other employees who are part-time become full-time because of the needs in the schools?
We are looking at a couple of different opportunities. Right now, we've got around $1 million set aside of our CARES Act money for additional monitors to be hired to come into the schools. Later on this week, we will be meeting with our subs and around the different ways that we're going to be mobilizing our subs to work for us as either proctors, moving into some of these proctoring assignments, or taking over for some online teachers that might become ill. So yes, there will be some opportunities. We may even be able to use some of these funds to extend, as the original question asks, some of these part-time positions into 3 or 4 more hours of extra supervisory work, walking through and supervising some of these classrooms. So we are going to need to be mobilizing as many different employees as we can to make sure that our learning spaces are adequately covered. And I will again mention that does not exclude the district administration. We're going to practice what we are preaching.
Dr. Trujillo, we have several questions regarding proctors. So I'm going to read 3 of them that can probably be answered together, and all these come from Facebook.
Yep.
Colleen Fitzgerald Bradley wants to know who will be proctors. Greg Gunther wants to know, can an employee decline to be a proctor? And Janet Milligan wants to know if counselors that are working from home can also be called in to be proctors.
Right now, TEA is working with employee relations on negotiating a specific process for who gets what employee group gets called in before the other. Right now, TEA and employee relations are collaborating on the different options that principals are going to have to call people back. I don't want to speak publicly before those negotiations and those discussions are completed. But I will say that there will be a clear-cut process for TDRB employees and classified employees that we will take into consideration. Number 1, who has ADA accommodations, who's high risk, who has a pre-existing condition. We will move them out. They will have an immediate option to work from home. We will call for volunteers as a first phase. And we do. We have volunteers. We have people, numerous people have emailed saying they want to do their part. So it's not like we're going to have 0 volunteers. We're going to start with volunteers. Then we're going to look at the list that each campus has for TDRB and classified. And we will start there, and we will remove anybody that has come forward with a pre-existing condition or somebody that qualifies for an ADA accommodation. They will be given the work from home consideration. And then from there, we will have different categories of callbacks. If you depend on additional job duties to keep you working, okay, like the bus driver who just is going to need duties because we're running 50% fewer routes, you will probably, that kind of a position will probably be the first to be deployed. Positions such as counselors, such as social workers, that's a discussion and negotiation point with TEA. TEA is advocating very strongly on your behalf. If you're out there listening, I want to compliment TEA for their advocacy. They are advocating for a turn-taking system where a counselor or social worker would not be responsible for proctoring 5 days a week, but might be only pitching in for some hours a couple days a week, and then have the rest of the week available to do their original jobs. So this is not fully worked out yet. I don't want to speak ahead of these discussions, but these discussions will be wrapping up soon. They do involve employee relations and TEA at this point. But I've given you enough so that you understand what are the major concepts that we're going to be discussed. Can you say no to being a proctor? You can say no to being a proctor if you have a pre-existing health condition, if you qualify for any of the leave types that we have been very, very public about. We will work with you and get you into an alternative assignment. Saying no to proctoring and staying home and your job description doesn't qualify, you're, say, a custodian, and we can't just invent or make up a work from home assignment because the very nature of your job is to be on the campus. We're violating laws. We're violating the gifting of public funds law, and we just can't have that. So there are leave options. HR will work with each individual employee to talk you through what those leave options are. If you have a pre-existing condition, we certainly will work with you. Proctoring will be done in the most transparent and fairest way possible, so everybody knows that there is a clear procedure and there's a clear order and there's a clear identification to who gets called back. And I will wait for TEA and employee relations to conclude their discussions before getting into any more specific details.
Okay, so the next question has to do with discipline. It's two parts. One is, what is the discipline policy for students who are online and misbehave? Versus Carrie Jones asked, what are the policies for students who are actually on campus and refuse to wear a mask or are doing inappropriate things, coughing or sneezing on others?
The code of conduct applies. Your administration and your monitors are there to assist. Monitors are there to retrieve kids, escort them to the administrative offices. We've got deans of students. We've got assistant principals that are going to be performing their normal functions. Easy question. That's the same. We deal with student discipline on a daily. Every single day we deal with student discipline. But there's a couple of different factors coming at us. We're going to have dramatically smaller class sizes. Okay. So that right there, that is going to be really, really big in mitigating the amount of student behavioral issues that we expect to be seeing. The remote environment is so new. I don't know what we're going to see online, but I can tell you that the feedback we've received from teachers over the last spring is there just wasn't a lot of very disruptive, in-your-face, obscene behaviors being exhibited by kids online. Will that continue? Don't know, but we expect the normal code of conduct will apply. If a teacher experiences a disciplinary incident during one of their Zoom classes, they have email, they've got phone numbers, they can reach out to a principal. We have an electronic referral process. Our administration can contact parents. I don't see these being barriers. I think as long as the teachers are very clear with what their expectations are for their online Zoom classes, I don't think we'll see too many of these issues.
Dr. Trujillo, on Facebook, we're seeing a lot of questions relating to subs. When will they be required to report to school if they're subbing for a teacher who perhaps gets sick while they're working from home? And will subs be used as proctors as well?
We have a town hall scheduled for the subs later this week, myself and Ms. Mesa, for any subs listening. But we will be looking at subs in two specific roles. We will be looking at subs as proctors, where a campus needs extra assistance, and we will be looking at subs to go in and supervise learning spaces. We will also be looking at subs to fill in for online teachers. We will be giving more details during our town hall. The same rules for a sub applies if a sub has a pre-existing condition, if a sub has a health issue, if a sub is high risk. We certainly have different opportunities for subs. In that situation, subs will be treated no differently than teachers. If they're stepping in for an online teacher, they can certainly work from home, just like our regular teachers are able to do that. But proctoring is a physical assignment. So when a sub accepts a a proctoring assignment, they're accepting a physical assignment. But here's the difference between subs and everybody else. Subs consent to their assignments. They decide where they're going to work. They decide what days they're going to work. They know what the rates are in normal time. Same thing with a proctoring assignment. When proctoring assignments are offered, they have an opportunity to take the proctoring assignment, which is the physical supervision of a learning space. We will require masks. We will be requiring them to perform the same functions as any other learning lab supervisor or somebody that's providing supervision. We will be providing more details later on at our town hall for subs this week.
Okay, the next is from Kira Espinosa, an ExEd teacher. And she says, as an ExEd teacher, I feel very left out. I see lots of information about general education teachers and guidance for them, but nothing for exceptional ed. Do you have any suggestions?
I support our exceptional ed leadership team. I've seen communications from them that have shown me some great efforts at communicating with ExEd staff. I've been very clear in all my communications that parents and the IEP process are going to drive placements. They're going to drive the programs, that we have an obligation for those with extensive and comprehensive need. A lot of our severely cognitively impaired, our wheelchair bound, our medically fragile. It is absolutely impossible for us to deliver those services with any kind of fidelity while those students are home. We have an obligation to provide on-site support for those kids. I will defend my decision to prioritize those kids. They're the most vulnerable that we have. And the only way we can get them the highest quality services that they count on us daily to support them in their lives is here at school. And that is a very vulnerable population. If a parent does not want that on-site support, particularly in the case of say a wheelchair-bound medically fragile student, they have the right through the IEP process to request remote instruction. Then the IEP team would come together and create the services necessary to try to replicate what's needed to best serve that student in a remote environment. This, of course, does not apply to what I call the special or the specific learning disability portion of our ExEd population. Specific learning disability students function by and large very well in the general education classroom. They might just have one area of disability in reading or writing or math, but they're able to do fairly well with just general classroom accommodations. Those students should be able to do just fine, either remotely or in one of our on-campus learning spaces that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. We have a question from Catherine Yeager. It's about the number of kids in the classroom. She says, what will happen if more families opt for the on-campus option than the number that is defined by your plan? My school has 10 sixth grade teachers. If each teacher has 15 students in their classroom, then the grade level will have more than 115 students. What will happen if more than 150 students opt for the on-campus option?
So two things on that right now. The data's not looking that way. I get enrollment reports every single morning that tell me on a school-by-school basis the percentage for each school and the district at large of families that are choosing remote and online. And right now it's 60% of our families are choosing being home and remote learning. 40% are choosing on campus. So the data is not trending, and we're already almost at August 1st, okay? So the data is trending very heavily towards online. Secondly, each school will be in charge of contacting each and every single family to make sure that its families understand very clearly. You must select an option, online or off remote, the remote learning option, and that we have limited space in our rooms. And if you want in to our on-campus learning spaces, and we're already maxed out at 15, the options are for you to, we will find another on-campus learning space, maybe at another campus where they are under the 15 cap. So that's kind of how our system is going to work, just to make sure that we are honoring the class size. The class size is crucial. We need that number to be small if we're going to implement social distancing and enforce all of the CDC compliant COVID-19 precautionary measures.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Carolyn Breed asks from Dunham asks, what are the expectations around the normal work duties while someone is a proctor in a classroom?
When you're proctoring in a classroom, you're going to be a lot of the time addressing logon issues, helping students start their computers. I think that will be a very, very basic. You'll be keeping track of students that go to the bathroom. It's going to be the monitors that are working the campus that will be supervising the bathroom, but keeping track of who needs to go and making sure that you're flagging a monitor in a hallway so they know what kid is going to the bathroom. That's a duty. Making sure that your learning lab kids are present. So if your learning lab kids that you're in charge of proctoring, if there's 13, first thing you do is to make sure that all 13 are accounted for in that seat, and getting your set of 13, 14, or 15, or whatever number you have, getting them lined up, socially distanced apart, and getting them ready to go to lunch. Lunches, of course, will be done literally on a very, very small group basis, perhaps 1 or 2 classes at a time, to promote distancing in the cafeteria. It's basically it. Also, if you have discipline issues, you will be expected to contact the administration or your monitor for immediate support, so students can get taken to the administration or see an MTSS coordinator or see a counselor. A lot of times our counselors are our first line of defense with meltdowns. A lot of times just talking it through with our counselor will mitigate an issue and a student might be able to return to class. MTSS coordinators are good with that. Social workers are good with that. Restorative practice facilitators are very, very good with that. And then of course the administration is there to support. So it's not anything where you're designing lessons, where you're teaching, where you're grading work. It's basically just going to be those duties. And then performing, of course, wipe downs. We want to be able to provide on a very basic level materials necessary just to wipe down door handles, easy, high traffic, high touch points, highly trafficked touch points for possible transmission, like a door handle. I think that's important. And that's basically the job.
Dr. Trujillo, Jill Maxwell wants to know if a teacher opts for teach on ground, can they do that?
Yes, teachers can come and work in their classrooms. Any teacher that wants to volunteer to come work their class is welcome to.
Okay. Tara Drummond asks, when the buildings open, will the libraries also open? And will the librarians and library assistants have the flexibility to work both on campus and at home on altering days?
I'm not going to make a comment because the library assistant and librarian is a discussion between TEA and employee relations, and they're working that out. Those are 2 positions that are involved in the discussions that I referenced earlier. I want to respect those ongoing discussions and not get out in front of TEA and employee relations.
Dr. Trujillo, Laurel Irwin has 2 questions. How will we assess our kindergartners, and how will we teach them how to write, handwriting, and address their fine motor skills that they need?
This model is not perfect. It's not going to do everything we need it to do. We need it to provide some level of learning. Is it going to hit every single standard that we have available? Is it going to do the things that only live in-person instruction? No, it's not. I don't like this model. And I join you in that concern, but I can't tell you that this model is going to do everything with 100% fidelity that a child needs at the kindergarten level. It's just not. It's not going to do that for 1st grade all the way up through 12th grade. It is emergency pandemic schooling that will provide some continuity of educational services until we can get back live in our buildings. That's all it does. It offers no project-based learning, that is going to be comparable to what students would be experiencing when they're back live and in person. It doesn't replicate the effectiveness of small group guided reading lessons. It can't. It doesn't replicate the balanced literacy rotations that we run in our K4, K5 classrooms. It's not. It's just an emergency model that is going to meet some immediate needs until we can get everybody live back in the classroom. So we can pick it apart. We can talk about everything it's not going to do, but at a very basic level, it's going to provide at least some very basic access to school and to our different content areas until we can get people back in the buildings and do handwriting without tears and some of those curricular components that were referenced. Do them with fidelity when people are back.
So the next question is from Trish Sierra, and she asks, if a child has a fever, running nose, cough, or other symptoms, are we required to send them home? Who will be doing the evaluation? And how does the school, is the escalation chart work that's in the document?
Thank you for referring to the document. When a kid is running a fever, the expectation is that kid goes for an examination to the health office or the nurse's office or the health education office, whatever the term might be. Our nurse's assistant or nurse will be masked up, gloves, have all their professional personal protective equipment. They will be performing an analysis on the kid. The kid will then go to what we are now calling the wellness room and will await a pickup from parents. When kids are exhibiting symptoms, we are taking no chances. By now you've seen in our plan that we will require that such a student be out for 10 days. But the beauty of our model is the kid's access to class is not interrupted. So the kid will go home and quarantine up for 10 days, but they'll be able to log on to their class just like always and access their teachers. That's the advantage of having one universal model. Our health services team on the campus will be responsible for providing families with information for testing. If families go and get that testing and they come back positive, then it's a formal report to the Pima County Health Department, and then they take over. On all positive reports coming from our schools, Pima County Health Department will trigger contact tracing. They will run contact tracing for our schools and make sure that teams that an assigned contact tracer will work with the administration to make sure that we are identifying everybody that needs to be interviewed. So that's going to be our protocol 10-day out. If a family opts not to get tested, they're going to have to sit out the 10 days, and that's 10 school days. Okay, so it's actually going to end up being 14 when you build in the weekends, and then they're going to be back with us.
Dr. Trujillo, we have a question on Facebook from Samantha Riggs. Will children still be required to pass the state mandate tests, such as the Arizona Merit, and will these tests have different scores over the next few years?
You know, that's going to be my big thing as we go forward. We have got to get rid of AZ Merit this year. It is totally crazy that we have dramatically altered the learning environment for students and teachers. Okay, we have created COVID-19 compliant spaces. I often tell parents that don't like the model, you have your pick, parent. You can take your child behind a computer where the teacher has a fighting chance to make something engaging and do at least some online group work and use that asynchronous instruction to get kids engaged with learning software that features videos and games around content. Or we're not doing that, and I'm sitting your kid facing front with a mask on, with a barrier between that kid and other kids, and I've taken away games, projects, group activities, field trips, anything interactive and fun for school, and relegating that kid to staring at the teacher for 55 minutes and doing a worksheet. So the COVID-19 classroom is dramatically altered, and we have also lost 5 months because of this closure. And we are now according to the legislature, going to be in a position of asking teachers to basically now teach 5 quarters of content in 4 quarters and be held accountable by an AZ merit that has been absolutely unmodified and holds schools and teachers to the very, very same expectations. It's totally ludicrous. So we're focusing a lot of our lobbying efforts right now at the state capitol for waiving AZ merit for the year or modifying it. It's got to be modified. To go forward with it like this, when we have dramatically changed the teaching environment for teachers and students, it is not fair. It's just really, and it puts an unfair burden and pressure on teachers and students. So that is really a big priority for us right now.
Okay. The next question is from Lynn D. Bradley from Doolin, and she asks, some states have definitive criteria on when they will allow in-school classes to begin. Does the district have this, and do we know when it will come?
Pima County Health Department will be creating this criteria, and the goal is for all districts to adopt it. That way, Flowing Wells isn't making a decision different from TUSD or Sunnyside, so that we're all kind of moving together by bringing people back from a phase 1 to a phase 2, from a phase 2 to a phase 3.
Dr. Trujillo, I have a question. We have a question from Nanette Misifus. From one source, we are hearing paper-free, and from others, we're hearing about workbooks that will be expected to distribute and use. Which one is it?
I don't want workbooks in these classes. You're hearing it directly from me. I don't want workbooks. I want a computer environment. I don't want people touching things, passing things. I want to get as much paper and books and materials out. I want kids walking in, and I want kids in front of a computer, and the teacher is in charge doing things virtually through Zoom. There should not be a big need for paper or passing a bunch of materials out. That's just an invitation for trouble. It's an invitation for kids not washing their hands, passing the virus around, and it creates another responsibility for whoever's monitoring or proctoring. That's just an additional thing that they have to wipe down, and they're not going to have that kind of time. I've addressed that with my team daily, assistant superintendents, chief operating officers, and I will keep saying it. I don't want paper and books and things being passed around in these learning labs.
Okay, so Zane asks, will teachers be allowed to supplement the online platforms with other programs that they feel fit their students' needs? For example, creating videos or other types of technology that help them be engaged?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're trying to preserve teacher autonomy and creativity. And so we have a structure that teachers will follow a schedule, and the teachers will have to use the platform that we give, right? But in terms of the learning activities, the lesson design, the supplementary materials, that's their area. So we certainly want to respect and preserve that autonomy. Absolutely.
Dr. Trujillo, a question from Robin Rodriguez. How are you going to track attendance, and are kids required to show their faces while on Zoom?
Yes, thank you. Great question. So what I've got in our reentry plan are some sample schedules. And I want to be careful, sample, okay? This doesn't mean it's a standard bell schedule for the whole district. Your principals and your school teams, they are using these as a guide for developing each campus's bell schedule, okay? So what our expectation is once that bell schedule is established, absolutely correct. What's different about this year than last, everybody shows up. So if you take a look at our sample middle school schedule, first period, 8 o'clock, whether you're sitting at home in the learn from home remote option, or you're sitting in a learning space at Doolin, there's no difference. Both of you need to be online at 8 o'clock to get your attendance, both of you. So that's the structure now. With this schedule, we're expecting all the students, regardless of whether you're in an on-campus learning space or you're remote from home, you show your face during this first period. You've got to be there, okay? And the teacher that's in charge will be able to take attendance and synergy. They got to see the faces. Got to see the faces. Great question.
All right, I'll go ahead and ask for another one from Facebook. Andrew Scott, will advanced placement classes be available through online learning at the high school level?
Yes, advanced placement courses will be fully available and offered by teachers at the high school level. Absolutely. We support that work. And remember that your AP teachers have the freedom and the innovation to create, to design lessons, and to adjust the level of rigor and difficulty according to the AP level. And of course, they will be following College Board expectations. They have to, because we're College Board AP certified. Thank you.
So Carrie Jones asked, at the last board meeting, it was said that all children will receive some type of art or music, but I've been told at some elementary schools, they will not be getting OMA. Can you please share how this is equitable, or did I mishear the information?
Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to clarify. Standard district performing and fine arts classes, like regular art, okay? District funded art, district funded band, district funded choir. We will be offering this on every campus. OMA is not your standard district implemented program. OMA is at some select schools. It's not at every school, okay? So there's a difference. When I say art and music, I'm specifically referencing TUSD implemented and funded art and music, okay? The standard non-OMA choir that is offered at our elementaries and our K-8s. The standard TUSD funded and staffed band. We don't staff it with OMA design artists. Now at our OMA schools, our OMA Gold schools and our OMA schools and residence, that's a different story. So even before COVID-19, we have 64 elementary schools. We don't have OMA in all 64. We don't. And we don't have them during COVID-19. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Elementary kids and middle school kids, they will get art, PE, okay, and access to these electives, but not OMA. OMA is a different program.
Dr. Trujillo, we have a request from Chelsea Brown. She wants to see if you can have a message or any suggestion for teachers who have young children at home and that they will not be sending their kids to school, but at the same time, they need to focus and they need to teach effectively from home. Like, what would be your message for them?
Well, I will say the following. I will say that a teacher, I would say to the teachers, the reason why, number one, we support your choice and option to work from home is because we know that many of you have kids, and it is tremendously more difficult if you want to keep your kids home for you to be coming into work. So understanding that there's a significant portion of our teachers that have to have kids and have the childcare issue, and not only the childcare, but the double duty of having to teach their kids that are either in schools outside of TUSD or inside of TUSD, and as well as facilitating their own classes. Also, as you can see, as a support piece, we brought a significantly more robust structure of expectations that should not require as much teacher involvement with their kids, okay, as their kids are learning from home, at least from TUSD teachers. Now that you can see that our structure is a lot tighter, kids get used to a schedule, it should be a lot easier. And for this reason, we wanted to support the work from home option for our teachers. That way they can get a better handle on the double duty that happens. So that's my message. We did this in the spirit of supporting you and your work, and of course in your decision to also educate your students here in TUSD at some of our schools.
Okay, great. So Dr. Trujillo, we're down to the last few questions. The first one is from Trish Sierra, and she asks, I have 4 children at home, and I wanted to find out how the district is going to be able to support my Wi-Fi needs so we can run 5 Zooms and computers at the same time.
Number one, as you've heard me say, good news, quite several times now since the governing board approved our budget. If all 4 of those children go to TUSD, everybody gets a laptop. So we're going to solve devices. You're going to get 4 laptops for 4 TUSD kids. If you do not have unlimited data and high-speed internet, we're going to pay for it. We also, as part of our budget, we passed $250,000 for family and employee assistance for unlimited data, high-speed internet to be able to support the work on the teacher's end, facilitating all the video calls. So these dollars are to support our teachers as well. High-speed internet and unlimited data, that's not cheap, and it's expensive. So if our teachers need that help, we're going to help them. And we also have money in the budget to help our families. So providing all the devices that you need for the kids, and then also upgrading your internet if that's necessary to be able to bring in the high speed and the unlimited data.
Okay, and then the last question that I have is, can you please explain what the district is going to provide in PPE to any staff that's going to be working on campus?
We are working on the arrival of face shields, masks, standard masks, face shields, gloves, hand sanitizer. These will be primarily the PPE of choice that will be available to all of our employees. We also respect employee choice and autonomy. A lot of our employees have been very clear that they prefer their own masks. They'll be bringing in their own face coverings, and that's okay. We're not obligating anybody to accept what we have on hand. Also, I want to be very clear and consistent. Many of you have heard me speak very publicly about the concerns, and I want to be very open with you, our employees. I still have very, very serious concerns about the supply chain piping into Arizona, serving Arizona schools and districts with regard to these items, and concerns about whether or not we will be able to get resupplied in a timely fashion. Do I believe that we're good to go to open us up? Yes. But do I also believe that these items are going to run out very quickly? Absolutely. And I have concerns about when we run out, how quickly we will be able to be resupplied, given the challenges we've seen with our vendors and the supply chain at this point.
All right, so we have one more question, I believe, from Robin Gilbert, and she says, can you tell me how teachers get computers if they have not bought one so that they can be sure they can operate their classes?
Yeah, we are scheduling we're scheduling computer distribution to teachers. When you get back, okay, the teachers start August 3rd. When you get back, you can notify your teacher technology liaison. We'll get you on the list and we'll get you a computer. We built in for the budget purchase of 1,700 computers exactly for this situation. We don't want, and we'll order more. If it's more than 1,700, we will certainly make sure that we put a new computer and a new laptop computer in the hands of any teacher that needs one. We don't want any teacher feeling like they have to go purchase one on their own.
Great. So I think that's the bulk of our questions. Dr. Trujillo, do you have anything, last statements you want to make before we wrap up today?
I just really appreciate everybody's patience. I really do. This is not an easy situation to navigate. This is a once in a career, once in a lifetime pandemic that has thrown all of us for a loop. And all of you have hung in there with us, and you've been very supportive. You've been very patient, understanding that these types of systems that we're building and new processes and new protocols, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. It's going to take your support, and it's going to take your patience. And we vow to do everything we can to keep everybody as safe as we possibly can. So I want to thank all of you for joining me today and giving me the opportunity to address these questions, and then also for asking such great questions. And this is how we grow. This is how we share out information. So I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. And as a reminder, we have all of the district plans on Next Steps 2020 that you can go and see, as well as many frequently asked questions and other information for you to review. So thank you and have a great day.